Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Gotham episode 2 video. Actually, creatively, it was a pretty good episode, and it did a good job of setting up what the Court of Owls plan is for Gotham and how they're using all these criminal characters, using the maniacs, however you want to think about them. It's still really early in the season, so what we're just seeing now is Team Batman slowly come together as Team Arkham slowly comes together. That's the way I'm thinking about them. We haven't really gotten to full-blown Court of Owls yet. They're just kind of laying the seeds for that. So just careful for spoilers from the episode if you haven't seen it yet, starting with top 5 moments. Number 5, Theo versus the mayor. Last week, Theo presided over the transition between commissioners. They said he was there in the mayor's absence, so now we just got the payoff where the mayor has been. And it's Richard Kind back from season 1. He was the guy that played the mayor in season 1, who was actually a pretty terrible person himself. My guess is that his plan for Arkham City just clashed with what the Court of Owls' plan for Arkham City is. Theo explains there's a grander plan for Gotham. Now, season 1 was all about Arkham City, so I think that this is actually a much bigger deal. But Arkham City is probably a big part of it. I'll be interested to see how much they reference Arkham specifically, in terms of the big development. There's Arkham Asylum, and then there's Arkham City, like the larger area that everyone was fighting over last year. They've done a really good job with the comedy this year so far. I mean, Gotham is meant to be a little bit of a darker show. It's Batman. Batman is a dark character. So naturally, when they're at the newspaper with the follow-up, like, where's the mayor? WTF did he go? You just see people casually flying by in the window. Yes, the message with the bodies was a little over the top, but I felt like it totally worked in the context of this episode. I'm totally on board with their sense of humor, just as long as they stay consistent. The tone of the villain scenes have been a lot better. Some of the villain characters are pretty interesting so far. And I'm really digging the way they're using cinematography and special music during the villain scenes to just make it a little bit trippier. If you look at the scenes that the villains have, like whenever they're chasing down the bus later in the episode, and anytime it's just them in the scene, they twist the camera, they darken the light, and they give them their special villain soundtracks, like their special villain theme music that they've given them, which is actually great. I actually think there's a good shot they could release a soundtrack of this stuff whenever the season's over. On to number 4, Theo explains the Court of Owls' plan to the maniacs. So here's the deal. Jerome and his friends are just going to destroy the city as much as possible, and then the Court of Owls is going to walk in, clean everything up, and be lauded as the saviors. The stagecraft was a lot of fun. There have been some images in some of the trailers too, of like Jerome all done up like a ringmaster. There's a certain theatricality to all the best Batman villains, so I feel like this is all thematically totally on point with the universe. A really good counterexample of this would be to go to The Flash, where everything is done in broad daylight. There aren't a whole lot of scenes that happen at night. Everything is a little bit lighter, the characters are just a little bit happier, a little bit sillier. All of those comic book characters still very true to their characters in the comics thematically, but it's a very different tone from Batman comics and their characters. The funny thing is always when you see characters from, say, like Batman comics show up in other people's comics, that's where you start to get into continuity problems, which is kind of what it makes it harder for TV shows to cross over when they have dramatically different tones. I know a lot of people are wondering about Gotham crossing over with all the other shows. Just to be clear, Gotham is supposed to take place in the late 80s, early 90s, so this is all happening like 20 years before what's happening on The Flash right now. On to number 3, Alfred smashes Bruce's computer and he loses his shit. It is kind of fun to watch little kid actors lose their shit. I feel like he's doing a pretty good job. By the time this series makes it to like season 4 or season 5, David Mazouz, the actor here, will be a full-blown teenager. He'll actually be old enough to play a real Batman. But typically, you don't see them giving scenes like this to actors, like them just flying off the handle, just because it ends up looking really silly. So I feel like the actor, David Mazouz, actually did a pretty good job with this. Because we're kind of in like a mini version of the Batcave, I mean, there's even like a penny with a dinosaur on the desk there. I feel like this computer kind of reminds me of the Michael Keaton Bat computer down in the Batcave from his first 80s Batman movie. Just, very big, very tactile. Did anybody else buy it when Bruce fired Alfred? Like, did you think that he was going to go and have some separate arc off on the show for the rest of the season? I thought for a minute that might happen, but then they totally took it back a little while later in the episode. I feel like they could have waited till next week to do that, but the whole thing about this episode was the villains coming together in a really cohesive way and the heroes coming together too. And you can't do that when they're all going off in different directions. So I totally get what they did with the Alfred Bruce drama. On to number 2, enter Lucius Fox, stage left. This is just fun because Morgan Freeman's Lucius Fox character was so integral to making Batman's new technology, or at least giving him new technology. Technically, it's the R&D department that developed all that stuff in the Dark Knight trilogy. But in the context of the TV show, Lucius Fox feels very remorseful about not being able to do anything to help Thomas Wayne, just because they've been so close for so long. He is a genius, he's helping them fix the proto-Bat computer, so now Lucius is officially on Team Batman, which I just think is awesome. So far, the actor's done a pretty good job, but I feel like we're gonna need to see some more Lucius Fox scenes to get a sense for how the show's gonna be using him. He's supposed to be a main character this series, so he should be in most of the episodes. I'm kind of waiting now for Theo's character to cross over with the Wayne board. Like, is he gonna show up as like this mystery new member of the board? And finally, of course, on my number one WTF moment, the villains attack the police station and kill Commissioner Essen. There's a whole lot to unpack here. Like, you have what's going on with Nigma and Miss Kringle off to the side. You have what's going on between Barbara and Jim. I know a lot of people are wondering if Barbara's going to be like the new Harley Quinn. I don't think they're ever going to call her Harley Quinn. But yes, she's wearing red gloves. She's got a crazy laugh already, which I think is pretty good. I mean, she's going to have to work on her villain laugh. It's just, I don't think they would do Harley Quinn if they weren't going to give her Harley Quinn's backstory. Regardless of which TV show it is, usually when they bring a big comic book character on, they try to be as true as possible to their origin story from the comics. Even though Gordon had a lot of scenes, I feel like his best scenes were with Harvey, who I am so happy to see that he got together with that woman from the Scarecrow episodes last season. That's where she showed up as part of that storyline. We've seen far too little Harvey so far, but it seems like he's back on board now. He's back on Team Batman. This episode was really more about Jerome taking power and the Maniacs starting their mission to just destroy Gotham as much as possible. So not super heavy on some of the hero characters, like even Leslie Tompkins was barely in this episode. And just for reference, if you guys have noticed this, they've been calling her Lee. That's just short for Leslie. I heard him say it during episode 1, but I didn't think too much of it. It just sounded a little bit weird. And after I heard him say it again in this episode, I was just like, okay, I guess they're gonna call her Lee from now on. The cool thing about Morena Baccarin in real life is that supposedly she's having a baby with Ben McKenzie, her co-star Ben McKenzie on the show. Write as much Batman fanfic as you want, but there was also an interview with her recently where she talked about really liking having the weekly schedule of being on a TV show, as in she had no plans to leave Gotham anytime soon. So don't be surprised if Leslie Tompkins continues to be a main character into season 3, season 4, however many years the show continues. It's just when you're an actor, it's really hard to raise children when you have to fly all over the world. So when you're on a TV show, it's a much more regular schedule. So that's why you see actors who are trying to raise families choose TV shows over doing movies a lot of times. But let me know, what's your favorite moment from the episode? And what's your favorite thing about the villain so far? How do you feel about the way the show has changed the way it portrays villains? I feel like they just have a stronger sense of their creative style when they're dealing with these characters. And so far, it's actually come across really well. It looks a lot better on screen than season 1 did. If you do have any friends who aren't watching Gotham yet, just tell them Uncle Harvey says start watching the show right now, because it's actually starting to get really good. And speaking more about the Court of Owls, the way they explained how they're doing it on the show is that they're going to slowly tease it out. Like someone isn't going to say Court of Owls for a while, but you're going to see Court of Owls things happening in the background. So be sure to look for Easter eggs and clues. Like as Tigress is closing her sniper rifle case, you actually see what looks kind of like an owl on the outside of the wood. That's definitely on purpose. They wouldn't do that unless they wanted you to see an owl there. Anytime there's a multi-million-dollar TV show that is really expensive to shoot, nothing makes it on screen unless they really want it to be there. The other really big news this week is that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3 is starting tomorrow. Now, the big deal is that they're doing Inhumans, and supposedly, I haven't seen it yet, but the critic friends that I know that have seen it say it's like a whole new pilot for the show, as if the show is completely different from the ground up. Everything I've heard has been extremely good, so if you felt like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 and 2 just were not your cup of gamma, then now is the time to start watching that too. I always get really excited when TV shows just, don't seem like they're as good as they can be, and then they come back roaring with each successive season. So season 4, probably going to be way better than season 3. And over in the DC universe, the same goes for Flash and Arrow, which are coming back next week. So a whole bunch of comic book TV coming back this week and next week. Make your bodies ready, and be sure to subscribe to get everything. So while you guys wait for everything to post, you can click here for all my Gotham Batman videos. I did a video kind of explaining what's going on with Court of Owls. And you can click here for the latest trailer from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tomorrow.